Hello, and welcome to Fifi and the In-Between, the channel for original short stories of fantasy to occupy your mind and inspire your deepest self. This is the story, Stolen Basket, Broken Glass. Before the basket was stolen, before the glass was emptied of its last unnecessary elegance, the meadow was alert and watching. It always was. The meadow lay just outside the city's cleanest edge, where stones softened into grass and the air was less toxic. The meadow had once belonged to a forest. But as the forest died off, meadows survived. Now there were so few meadows, and even fewer forests. The pavement kept spreading like calcification, hardening the soft underbelly of the decaying matter. The grass grew in long, sharp blades. The soil was quiet with the sounds of crickets, beetles, and ants, doing the business of surviving. People crossed it daily on a boardwalk built to preserve the rare grasses. Workers with dirt under their nails walked with heavy feet and lost hope. Children in old shoes ran chaotically, tripping and pushing through each other, ignoring adult complaints. Women with baskets of produce strapped to their backs, puffing hot air out of their lungs. They all had places to be. They were all equal here, the walkers. But on the afternoon where our story begins, the peace was broken. A rich woman in heels clacked sharply across the boardwalk. She was in a hurry and furious about needing to walk into the city. Her impractical shoes landed unevenly on the wood planks, embarrassing her as she muttered under her breath. She was offended that the stream of nobodies didn't part ways for her, even though it is likely that her efforts are feeding most of these ungrateful swine. Ahead, she saw her servant child with her lunch basket. "What in heaven's name are you doing with my meal?" "Oh, I was told you were stranded and needed to walk to the meadow today. Your 11 o'clock is canceled, so I was told to bring you this so that you could take your time and enjoy the beautiful day." "I see. Well, it won't stay fresh all the way back to the office." "Fine. I will eat it here. But you will stay with me to shoo away any onlookers." They selected the highest, greenest patch of green, where she could be seen and not heard or touched. The child unfolded a blanket for his boss to sit on. He placed the basket down carefully, deliberately, not set down, placed. She was always very clear about etiquette, and the child did not care to be hit. So he paid close attention and worked hard to please her, which wasn't easy. Inside, silverware was polished to a shine that suggested inheritance. Perfectly white linen napkins folded and ironed. From the basket wafted the smell of decadence, of meals meant to be commented on before they were consumed. Beside it, the martini glass was set upright, empty. Its emptiness was not accidental. It was an announcement. The glass was thin and frail. A fingernail accidentally hitting it could cause it to shatter. It caught the sun and bent the light, turning something average into a spectacle. The meadow watched with curiosity. Ants arrived, hopeful. Birds flitted back and forth for a closer look. Richness awaiting, she surveyed the setting and smiled, a small smile of self-congratulation. In the distance, she noticed a laborer watching her. She stiffened. "What is that ragged man looking at?" she said to the child, not loudly, but with disdain. She stood and walked towards the laborer, just far enough to make a point, daring the man to keep looking. The meadow watched. That was when a coyote snuck behind the child and the businesswoman and snatched the basket. The coyote was desperate, new to motherhood, needing to hunt alone. She couldn't wait for leftovers, and she knew at first glance that this was not the type of human interested in sharing scraps. One moment the shadows under the white oak trees were only shade, and next they were shoulders, a spine, a tail, teeth. The thief was slight. Her coat hung loose, remembering a fuller body that it no longer served. Her waist was thin, shockingly thin, like a dried-up riverbed in a drought. Every tendon was visible and tense. The meadow recognized the gentle paws of the coyote. She had been a pup here not so long ago. It remembered the way she had once laid flat on her back, staring up at the clouds, wanting for nothing. It remembered how she had been strong, how she had yipped with confidence with her pack. When the coyote grabbed the basket, the weight surprised her. The basket pulled at her teeth. The wicker creaked with each leap she made away from the angry woman. She was almost to the tree line when she heard a distant yell. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" She looked back to gauge the distance between them and the level of risk. The voice cut the air cleanly, the voice of someone used to being listened to. The coyote froze. Was the risk worth it? Could she make it back to her den without being trailed? The basket hovered between her tired jaw and the ground, neither claimed nor released. She snarled and puffed her fur. A false warning, but it was all she had left. The rich person laughed, a sound with no warmth. "Boy, go fetch the basket, will you?" The meadow stiffened. The birds went quiet. The thief swallowed. Her stomach gurgled with need. "She has pups," the boy said. "See the teats? They must be young. Her body is so thin, she can't have much energy left for making milk." "That isn't my problem," the woman snapped. "I earned the food. I don't give handouts." The boy looked at the coyote, then at the empty martini glass glinting uselessly in the sun. "You didn't earn hunger," the boy said quietly. "You inherited fullness." Her eyes darted to him. He could feel her planning how she was going to hurt him. She took a step forward to grab his collar, and the blanket moved just enough that the glass tipped slightly, and lightly falling, it shattered into pieces. "It was empty," the boy said. There were countless more back at the office. The thief watched, afraid for the boy. "You are proof of what a waste it is to buy a little boy from stupid mothers." She yanked the blanket into the air, tiny glints of glass fluttering up into the clouds and spreading widely across the glass. Edit. She yanked the blanket into the air, tiny glints of glass fluttering up into the clouds and then spreading widely across the grass. The ground accepted it, not that it was given much of a choice. The rich woman's mouth ran muddy and foul, threats, names, consequences promised with the confidence of someone who has the will and the means. The meadow moved with a breeze. The thief could not save the boy. She turned and ran to the trees. In a narrow den, where light trickled down in patches, a young pup, not knowing why her chest suddenly ached with hope, awoke. Starvation does not begin in the stomach. It begins in the cells. It begins when cells begin to consume themselves, when they stop dividing and let themselves die, when death builds up in the body. The coyote pup was new to the world, but the womb had felt generous. You could tell by the way the walls held warmth, and the muscles twisted in a dance, and deep, happy sighs could be heard rumbling. The den was not the same. It let in light and smells and cold. She lay on her side, facing away from the opening, not because she was sleepy, but because turning over required negotiation with her body. Her ribs poked out through her thin fur. Her sister lay next to her, mouth slack, dreaming of milk that arrived less and less often now, thinner each time. Mother gone longer and longer. She counted breaths. She counted her heartbeat. She counted the ants that tickled across her nose. Numbers were something she could control. Her name had been chosen easily. Adana, meaning the oldest daughter. Her sister was Alcharinga, dream time, a place where she could be safe. When they cried, the sound was muffled below the grass. Silence became a sound she feared more than crying. Her mother had told her that hunger sharpened the spirit. She had told stories about people who had survived, the type of stories that people tell when they are afraid of the truth. Her body did not listen to the stories. Her body longed to grow and to move. Outside, the forest and the meadow moved with its usual indifference. Deer passed by cautiously. Bird songs rose and fell. Somewhere, something was always being eaten. The coyote moved through the trees smoothly. Panic attracts attention. Desperation must learn patience. The basket's heaviness grew. The thief understood that she was running out of time. Every step reminded her of her own hunger, of days when the body curled inward like a question mark, of learning human habits and getting closer than she should. She had passed through neighborhoods that smelled of bread and neighborhoods that smelled of rot. The thief noted the difference, noted how birds sang more around the bird feeders, noted how plants leaned towards the sun. Nature had preferences. The meadow had known that. When the thief reached the opening of the den, she did not enter it right away. She listened, sniffed the air, made sure she wasn't followed. Inside, her baby stirred. The thief let out a huff. Soft. Then again. She heard the tiny squeaks from Adana. "I have returned to you, my dears." Silence from Alcharinga. Then her little eyes opened slightly. She saw the basket and her eyes widened with anticipation. She did not cry out. Hunger had stolen most of her energy, and she had nothing left for greetings. "What is it?" Adana asked. The thief lay down to catch her breath and calm her fluttering heart. It had taken everything in her to make it back to the den with such a full basket. "I'm not sure. I stole it." She nudged the wicker lid open as the pups watched, tails wagging slightly. Bread baked in the oven this morning. Fruits straight from a tree. Soft cheese that smelled like an old sock. The smell filled the space, and their bellies awoke sharply with a sudden need to be filled. Alcharinga yipped then, loud, demanding, alive. It was good to see that she had some fight still in her. Her mother sniffed, digging her snout deeper into the basket. Pâté. Ugh, the holy grail of food. She snatched it and pulled the wrapping off and gobbled it in one gulp. "Real food," the thief said. She lay on her side, relieved. Her paws shook with the release of all of her fears, her anger, her sadness. Alcharinga was so close to death. The pups licked her lips, and they licked the wrapper, waiting for their mother's body to recover. Outside, the forest continued its business, but in the den, hope was revived. Survival is a gift to those who suffer the most. As the mother ate more of the food, this time slowly and carefully, the pups watched the way life returned to her face, almost like watching her become young again. The way her eyes relaxed, lazy and almost playful. The way her breath sounded soft and gentle. Milk came easier that night. Not enough to make up for all the meals they had missed, but enough to live through the night. The mother did not stay long after the pups finished their meal. It was almost dawn, her favorite time for hunting. She stepped out of the den, paws aching, body full, but still weak. Her body needed time to heal, but that would have to wait. Above the den, birds slept in the trees. Branches creaked in the wind. Somewhere beneath the meadow, shards of glass were trailing down into the soil and into the hands of ants. And in the soil, something began to grow. The rich woman did not sleep well that night. Sleep awakens our weaknesses: self-doubt, fear, running from difficult choices, the frailty of teeth. She lay in her wide bed, sheets smooth and cool, listening to the quiet of her isolated home, far from the clangs and the honks and the whistles of the city. Every sound irritated her there. A broom too loud, gruff voice too near. Her mind returned again and again to the meadow, to the basket, to the coyote that had the audacity to take from her without apology. She was up before dawn. She called wildlife management. Words like thief and order and lawlessness were sharpened and generously used. The boy servant listened with his face trained into neutrality, his body already awake, ready to do her bidding. She refused to let him return to the office and to his own sleeping mat in the closet. She said she planned to train him right. By morning, the woman was dressed with intention, dark clothes, serious ones, clothes meant to be threatening. They returned to the meadow. It looked different. Not obviously, not dramatically, but the grass stood thicker, was less accommodating. Dew clung to everything, soaking the rich woman's shoes and slacks. The air smelled richer, darker, as if something underground had been busy all night. They returned, clothes sticking to their damp skin, to the place where they had laid the blanket, where the martini glass had shattered. And now there was a ring of mushrooms. Pale. Unassuming. Their caps pushed through the soil with a quiet passion, clustered tightly together, shoulder to shoulder, as if they were prepared for battle. The rich woman stopped and gasped. "What is this?" she demanded of the boy. He did not answer, stood with his mouth open, unsure of what she wanted him to say. She stepped closer, disgusted. "This is unsanitary." The boy's throat let out a laugh, and he tried to gulp it down. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't missed. The rich woman felt, for the first time, something unfamiliar. Not fear, something worse. Disrespected. The mushrooms were a message from someone. Who? Or, was the glass poisoned with spores that would kill her slowly? She kicked at them to destroy the message, but they were as hard as stones. The harder she kicked, the more resolute they became. The roots threaded deep, touching trees, grasses, rock, life. They fed and were fed. The rich woman turned away, furious. The boy followed from a distance, knowing she would find a way to punish him. Behind them, the mushrooms continued their work. Elsewhere, the thief slept lightly, fed by a few mice, and curled in her burrow, pups feeding. She dreamt of a feast, and in the dream, the meadow spoke to her as she ate. It seemed that the meadow had a lot to say. The meadow showed the thief the future. Her own paws rubbed raw from the pavement, her face even thinner. By stealing, she had only extended her suffering. She had awoke with a pain blooming through her legs, a deep ache where bone meets tendon, hunger pressed in again, impatient. The thief sat up slowly, breathing through it, knowing better than to rush a body already spent despite sleep. She should have stayed home. That was the rule. You do not return to the scene. You do not ask for more. Lingerers become pests, and humans kill pests. But something pulled at her. Not guilt, not bravery. Responsibility. She returned to the meadow midday, a risky time for any animal. And there she saw the mushrooms. They had grown since the morning when the angry woman had visited. Not wider, taller. More of them now, spreading in soft arcs, their caps too heavy for their stems. Pale against the green grass, they were impossible to ignore. People gathered at a distance, workers on break, children barefoot, the curious and the hungry drawn to this marvel, this message from the meadow. The coyote sniffed one, and pawed at it, unsure of what to think. "Are they safe?" someone asked. The coyote took a cautious bite. She knew she was being watched, but her stomach begged for sustenance. The rich woman returned again, flushed, outraged. She had been at the office for invasive species all morning, and she'd gotten nowhere. They weren't concerned about mushrooms. "You can't eat those," she shouted. "The meadow isn't yours. The city owns it. You're breaking the law." The laborer approached her, disgusted by her entitled kind. "Well, you don't own it either, although I bet you'd love to." Silence fell like a held breath. The woman looked around, suddenly aware of the crowd around her, of bodies, of eyes that were ready to pounce. "This is a theft," she said even louder. "No," the laborer said, stepping even closer. "This is a redistribution." The rich woman recoiled at his hot cabbage breath. "Who is your employer?" The laborer did not answer. This threat was meant to make him cower. But seeing something so strange as those mushrooms gave him strength to stand strong. "You were the one with the basket yesterday," the laborer said, voice steady despite the nervous feeling in his hands. "You had been sitting right there, flaunting your meal, walking on the grass even though it's strictly forbidden. You think you're smart, but really you're just arrogant. Even a coyote can outwit you. And now the mushrooms appear right where you were sitting, with the coyote getting another meal at your expense." The woman sneered. "Well, then it sounds like the mushrooms are mine." The thief took another bite, unsure of how much longer she'd have before the humans left the boardwalk and walked into the meadow. The thief's paws stood wide, ready to run. The ground began to soften beneath the thief's paws, warm, alive. A pulse traveled upward into her legs through her thin bones, steadying them. The pain in her stomach eased just enough. "It's not the police that will punish you if you leave the boardwalk," the laborer said. "They protect folks like you, excuse your crimes as moments of bad judgment, but the meadow does not live by the same rules. It will seek revenge." He gestured to the people that had gathered. "You don't own them, this boardwalk, this meadow. You borrowed your time with it. You follow its rules. You show respect. Now maybe in the city, the rules favor you, but not here." The coyote ate until all that was left were stumps. The humans watched closely. The woman left, suede shoes ruined, ego fuming. As evening fell, the thief sat alone at the edge of the field, ready to return to her hungry pups. They would feed well tonight. Above her, stars emerged, painting the sky with just enough light to easily make her way home. The meadow had done its part. But starvation does not heal quickly. It repairs the body as the mind begins to trust the world again. Her body was like a knot that had been pulled tightly. It gives away slowly, reluctantly, remembering. Even when the knot is released, the rope remains kinked and curved, prepared to knot again. The young mother did not become well overnight. Stories that promise that kind of mercy are written by people who have never waited for their bodies to heal from trauma. But the food steadied her. It gave her back her freedom of thought. Her pale tongue turned pink. Her limbs felt steady as she climbed back into the den. As her pups drank their fill, she heard a satisfied sigh from Altringa. As time passed, the walkers left gifts for the coyote. A loud and barefooted child left a slice of bread. A laborer left a cup of broth. One act of generosity led to another. It was an act of resistance, to share their sustenance with the coyote that had stood up to the rich woman. A week later, the thief returned the basket to the place it was stolen. She placed it where the mushrooms had been, empty, dusty, linen-stained. No one claimed it. No one needed to. The coyote no longer needed to steal, and she was grateful to be released from her burden. The mushrooms never grew back. The glass that had fed them had lost their sharpness, the web of mycelium relaxed, no longer feeling threatened. The children were disappointed. Elders were not. They knew better than to ask the earth to perform miracles on command. The rich woman never returned to the boardwalk, and the walkers felt their relationship with the meadow heal. And the thief? The thief returned less and less, even though the gifts continued. As her pups grew, she stayed near the edges of things where she belonged. She slept for most of the day. She hunted for her food. She never took more than she needed. Her paws strengthened, threaded with something new, not just muscle, not just bone and tendon, but memories. Memories of the way the earth and the people had been there for her. She never needed to steal after that. She taught the pups where abundance hides when it does not wish to be seen, in networks and roots, in the quiet agreements between strangers who notice injustice. Sometimes the laborer looked out at the forest on his way home. As the sun fell below the tree line, he could see the glint of eyes watching, but they were brief, darting quickly back into the shadows. He knew that miracles required distance to remain sacred. Children spread tails and tried their best to see the coyote that ate the mushrooms. They tried to be patient, but their laughter was unafraid, full-mouthed, announcing them from far away. On the last dusk of summer, the thief returned to the meadow alone. She sniffed the basket. She dug at the ground, paws trembling slightly, not from hunger, but from age arriving earlier than expected. The hunger had taken a permanent toll. She dug slowly but without pause until it was just the right size for the basket. She placed the damp and brittle wicker into the hole and covered it until no piece of it belonged to the air anymore. The grass moved. The wind answered, not with reassurance, but with acceptance. That night, rain fell. It wasn't violent, it was soft, enough to soak the earth. And the meadow drank. And somewhere beneath the soil, networks tightened and loosened, balanced and fed. By morning, nothing looked remarkable. The world continued. The gifts from the humans became sparse until they faded completely. But the story passed from generation to generation, and when the humans saw eyes glowing in the night, they remembered the message of the coyote to never cower for those who demanded them to bow.